Hey, Susie. Hey, everyone.
Hey,
Please
Rob.
welcome Susie Deignan. Susie, her awesome husband, Bobby, and I have been friends for 20 something years. She spent her career building brands for very cool labels and people like Converse, Tommy Hilfiger, Ralph Lauren. She was home raising her two awesome young kids. Was that now 6.5 years ago? When I came off that lacrosse field, she was my first call. It's been a while. So hey Suze, how you doing? Thanks for
Hey,
doing this.
hey, Rob. Awesome seeing you.
Yep, how's everybody doing?
Everyone's awesome. Awesome. Back to school started, day two.
Yep, sounds
So,
good. Yeah,
you
no,
know,
we're going through it too. So
yeah.
so do you, let's just start with, I know you remember that when I called you and basically, when I had the idea to make it and knew that these girls' heads had to be protected, and that became my mission. My second thought was, okay, how would I even get started doing it? And I
Yeah.
always say that Susie was my first call. Just with her background and her awesomeness, and as you can see, her smile and personality and your work ethic. I love it all. You were my first call. You remember that call that I?
I do. I do. It's crazy. I just remember you telling me your whole story about, your girls playing lacrosse and, my kids were much younger. I have a girl and a boy, just so everyone else knows. And, Katie's usually involved in a lot of sports, but not lacrosse. So you were telling me about being on the field and how you felt as a parent with the hard sticks and balls. And, of course, he looked to me and wanted to know how I could help. I was working at Converse Nike doing apparel. And so my whole background was always like, let's make this a lifestyle business, because what I liked most about it was, empowering these girls, first of all, let them play the game that they love, but do it safely. And, just do it right and have a voice, apparel that is made for them, gear that's made for them, number one. So building a lifestyle brand is just in my DNA. So I always wanted to twist it back to like, let's make headgear and also let's make great apparel and make a great brand that stands up for itself. So, I feel like that was my thing, but it was always the story that hooked me. And I know you feel the same way, besides your girls. And thank God they never got hurt from a ball or stick or concussion with it. But it was always talking to the girls who got injured. And that was really the hook. Because in the beginning, I felt like I was just helping you. I wasn't like, all right, let's do this. I was kind of like, I'll help you, but I still have to keep my day job. You know what I mean? But that's where I was kind of like, I cannot believe that people aren't helping these girls and aren't building headgear. So
Yep. No,
it's a
we
no-brainer.
definitely appreciate, and the girls appreciate, and I always say that too. That from that first conversation with the first girl we talked to who suffered and what she was going through, and just listening to her, and then listening to their families talk.
Yeah.
How can you not be inspired? And as I'm doing these with girls and parents, what I really take is that something so negative that happened to them, they just have this, quest to do something about it. And that's just so inspirational to me. And I talk a lot in the book about how that really, just keeps me going.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
for you, I know, branding and fashion, that's kind of your thing, and that's your background. Like,
Right.
in everything you've done, what is it that you love about, building a brand and, everything in fashion and the people you've worked with, over your career?
Right. Well, I feel like I'm always blessed to know that I love what I do. I love working in fashion. I love working, along smart, strong people, men and women. I've learned so much from everybody along the way, but really a lot of luck in it, like luck working for Ralph Lauren, straight out of the gate, working for him for many, many years. And then working alongside Tommy Hilfiger, where I feel like I really learned many valuable lessons. Branding, those are two iconic brands that I feel like you look at without the flag and without the polo pony, you can recognize that a mile away. Just everything about building a brand, from developing the logo, working with production, working with design, working with advertising, getting it out there, And now with social media is another thing, and social media influencers. It's just, I love kind of handling all those many facets, wearing many hats, so to speak. And, really, it's always been just working with people. And it's funny because starting this up with you and Jared, it's been great, but our team is small. So I think what we take away from it is like reaching out to all the girls and knowing what they want, hearing their story, and kind of like building it because, I don't pull any punches, I don't know about girls lacrosse. So, we hired engineers to build this helmet. From an aesthetic point of view, I know what the girls wanted. They wanted their ponytails to show, like some of those things, and then just building a logo that could stand on its own over time. So I think it's kind of like combining all of my favorite parts of my world together, and this is
Yep.
it. I love it.
Yeah, no, I know you do. And that's, I always make it clear how, when people are like, oh, I love your logo, I love your mission statement, I say that was all Susie, all Susie. That was, that's her inspiration. And, so can you, just talk through, a little bit about, as we were having those, what felt like thousands and thousands
Oh,
of
yeah.
conversations about the name and what really we were looking for. And, the best I usually gave you was, sounds good to me. I love it. I think it's awesome. So, for you, I know there were things that I was like, yeah, sounds good. It's awesome. And you're like, no, redo. And I said, whatever Susie says, redo, for, in creating it, what can you, talk about what that
Yeah.
experience was like, even though it was now, 3.5, 4 years ago?
Yeah. It does feel like a million years ago. But I remember in the beginning when we were kind of like brainstorming, just sitting there trying to figure out names for the company. Number one is, a lot of the lacrosse names like Lack Something or girl specific name. And I just always felt like it's not just lacrosse. Like we're starting off in lacrosse, but we want to build to something else. It's almost like Converse. It was born in basketball, but lives in rock and roll. That was kind of how I always felt. It was like, we're born in lacrosse, but like, we want to empower this girl in every step along the way. Maybe it's field hockey next, maybe it's another sport, maybe it's just an active lifestyle. So I think the name Hummingbird was one we kind of got on, and we were all finally in unison. We're like, yeah, that's cool. Let's look it up. Is it taken? That
Right.
was the first thing, right?
Yep. And I talk about Kyle and how it wasn't easy to get, but it took some work and some fighting for it, but we finally got it so that it's ours, it's our name, our
Yeah.
logo. So even that, can you talk a little bit about then? So once we had the
Yeah.
name, it was okay. Now let's create a logo. And again, everything I saw, I was like, that's cool. I like it. And it was, really whatever Susie thinks. So can you talk us through that process a little bit?
Yeah. So anyway, so Hummingbird, just go back to about what it means, because I know we get this question all the time. It's just, we were kind of like looking, is it an animal? Is it a color? What are we going with? And Hummingbird, just the word stood out to us. We looked it up. And as it turns out, it just has this whole like ancient folklore and Native American history about like the lacrosse stick is fashioned after a tail feather of a hummingbird. But really the meaning behind a hummingbird is also like it's an animal bird that's like quick, agile, fierce. And sometimes, you'd never think it because it's small. Sometimes people think of women like as like maybe more fragile, like a sweet little hummingbird. But yeah, they'll knock the socks off of you. It's the only bird that can also fly backwards, which is very cool. But we love that. And then it was kind of making the logo stand out. Do I have one? Like you have this, it's just the bird which stands out on its own. And it's a great logo, a trademark to like stand there. It could be alone, isolated, it could be within graphics. Just my head was always like going, like, yes, it could be on the side of a helmet, but what else can it do? It could be on apparel? Can it be a pair of gloves? It's endless.
Yeah, no, that's so exciting. Even when you just show it like that, obviously I love seeing it. Very, very cool stuff,
Yeah.
and you did it great. So, no, I really appreciate it. And then another part of all that mission is, I talk a lot about in the book. I grew up. My parents got divorced when I was very young, as you know, and I had 3 older sisters and my mother, and now I have my 4 daughters, and it's a big part of this company is, for her and for my girls and what I've seen my life, whether it was my sisters or now my daughters, and, the difference in the treatment. Can you talk a little bit about what all that means to you and words like female empowerment and
Yeah. Well, that was one of the biggest things because, like we were talking about, like my background's coming from fashion and coming from just the way I grew up, I always felt like I had an equal playing field as far as, being executive in the fashion world and have raising two kids. I have a boy and a girl. I raise them equally. And in fashion, it's always like for fashion, women set the trends. Women go first, and the men follow behind. I've did men's, women's, and boys and girls. It's always like women, men, and then the kids' fashion follows. And so I just walked into this a little bit, naively, thinking it's the same way for sports equipment. But as we like dove into it, I always say this like pink it and shrink it kind of thing. Like they're making like powder puff girls. They're making things in pink. And I've got nothing against pink. I love pink. But, it's not made for the female form, for her hand, for her head, for her needs. And the game's different. That's the number one thing is the game is different. So let's make something that actually works with the girl for her hair, something she's going to want to wear. So female empowerment goes, is into me. And I feel like I always want to, shout from the rooftops. And, we hear about it and it's so out there right now in public media, everything. But, sometimes it's a lot of lip service and sometimes, you're hearing it a lot, but it's not really, happening. You're always telling me about, your daughters, right? Like with basketball time and, playing field hockey, like, are they getting first choice? They're getting last choice before the lights go out. It's just not fair. So I feel like at least we will have this brand that speaks to the girl, that stands up for her, that makes equipment that's just for her. And, we're learning along the way. We're talking to the girls and, it's huge for me. It's huge. You were saying earlier about, working at these companies, I couldn't have done that also raising two kids if my husband wasn't home, taking care of the kids. And I know that's untraditional, but it's just what you do. And it's just as important job. Like if I was home taking care of the kids too, that would be a great job. My career was at a high and I loved what I did. And, we made everything work. There was no big plan of this is how it's going to line up. And sometimes life just happens that way. And, we love what we do. We love raising our kids together and we love all of that, but we also want our son and daughter to have, equal opportunity and all girls out there to have equal opportunity. So, it's also that little like hummingbird on the back. It's like everyone that we speak to and we go out to these lacrosse conventions or the fields and we put the bird on the back shoulder, the left shoulder as a signature. It's always like that's, a tribe of strong women having your back,
I mean,
and you're the number one. It's funny because we have a women's company and it's you and Jared who are, so strong, just like my husband, about female empowerment,
It's Jared has, three sisters, who besides his wife and his daughters, there's, nobody more that he cares about. I have, grew up with my three sisters. I talk a lot about it in the book. And obviously I talk about my four daughters and what it means to me that they all play sports and love it. And I see the difference between how they are on fields and, the way they are when they're playing and how they feel afterwards. And I love every single bit of it. I love everything that you've brought to the table. You're awesome. I love you, Bobby. Your kids are great. It's been so much fun for me to learn from you and, to sit back and just watch you do your thing and just be your cheerleader and so much of this process. So I just want to thank you, from the girls for everybody for being you are, keep doing. And, we don't want to talk about it here, but I'm so excited for our future and all the different things that you and I talk about on a daily basis about how excited we are for, creating this brand and this company, which obviously it's not easy. I talk a lot about that in the book.
Right.
How it's, nothing's easy and it's all, work and takes time and patience, but I just love every part of it. And I can't wait to take our next steps together. So thank you, Susie. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks,
and
Rob.
I really appreciate it. And I will be talking to you later today for sure.
Okay.
Take care.
Okay.
Thanks. Tell everybody I said hi. All right. Take care.
Well.